Welcome to 10 Questions with NBC10 Boston. I'm Kwani Lunis, and today's guest is the senior pastor of Jubilee Boston in Mattapan, Matthew K. Thompson. Thank you so much for joining NBC10 Boston today.
Thank you so much. I don't want to get any of my other parishioners in trouble. So Jubilee Boston, Jubilee
Yes,
Stoughton,
that is true.
and Jubilee Worcester. So I'm blessed to be here. Glad that you invited me.
Absolutely. And we definitely will talk about the other campuses that you have, because you were able to do that during the pandemic, which I think is very fascinating. But first, for those who don't know anything about you, I do want to backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
And tell us about your upbringing. I know you're a preacher's kid and obviously now a preacher. So what was that like growing up?
Well, so I have seven brothers and sisters. Me makes eight. And my dad moved to Boston in 1972. The year that I was born. So I guess I'm dating myself in terms of how old I am. I know I may look young, although I got some gray and I got some cracks in my knees to prove how old I am. But my dad came to Boston in 1972 to pastor a church in the Dudley Square area, now Nubian Square area, and pastored that church for 10 years. And then in 1982 stepped out in faith and founded New Covenant, now Jubilee. And I have an older brother who is a great man of God who pastors a great church in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. Then I have an older sister who pastors in Rhode Island. Then me. Then under me is national recording artist Phil Thompson, who travels around the world. He wrote a song called My Worship. I'm pretty sure some of you have heard of that song. And then I have a sister, April, who pastors in Alabama. Then my brother Joel, who's a CFO. Then my younger brother, Pastor Mikey, who's in Orlando. I'm in Orlando right now, everybody. He pastors in Orlando. And then my younger sister, Pastor Debbie, and her husband, Pastor Will, pastor our third campus there in Jubilee, Worcester. And, growing up in a large family was a lot of fun. Very, very exciting. I think that our family is rare, and I think it's a testament to my parents. The Bible says if you train your children in the way that they should go, when they get old, they will not depart from it. Now, by all means, all of my brothers and sisters, including myself, we've all gone through our tests and trials and adversities, right? Because there is no such thing as perfection. Right. The Lord is not looking for perfection. He's looking for surrender. But all of us have surrendered our hearts to the Lordship of Jesus Christ and are determined to follow the path that the Lord has marked out for us. And I was just blessed to have incredible parents that did not just preach something, but they actually lived something. Now, Habakkuk 2:2 says that we are to write the vision down, make it plain so that the readers can read it and run. And most people, they don't have a vision for their life or for their family, but my parents did. And they made it very clear about what their vision was, what their expectations were of us. But then the third thing that is so critical is not just to write your vision down and make it plain so that you can read it and your family can read it and run, but then you have to become the living embodiment of that vision. And if you become the living embodiment of that vision, then people will recognize that you are more than just someone that can talk a good game, but you can actually live it as well. And so I always say all the time, and you've probably heard me say this in church, because you are a member of Jubilee, right? that more is caught than taught. And so I caught so many incredible lessons of wisdom and understanding that now I am living out in front of my children and my grandchildren. So
thank you for sharing that. And the fact that most of your siblings ended up in ministry is so fascinating, because you definitely hear stereotypes of what preachers' kids do and all of that. So That's amazing to hear that. I did not know.
Yeah, no, and unfortunately, some of those stereotypes are, unfortunately,
Right.
they are true.
Mhm.
But I think that my dad. I remember growing up, and people saying, your dad, he's crazy and he's brainwashing you guys. And I was like, oh, no, he's not. He's not brainwashing us. He's just teaching us the truth, and we're determining to follow the truth. But I think many of us, actually all of my siblings, we are walking in that truth because we realize the power in the truth, not just in the words, but actually in the truth. And so if you walk before your children and you actually live what you preach, your children will go through tests and trials like I did, like you did. But when they get old, they will be anchored in that truth.
And fast forwarding a little bit, I know that you are a Morehouse man.
The house, come
So how
on.
does one come from Boston and decide to go to Morehouse and attend college there?
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting question as well. I was blessed to be. I was a gifted athlete, and I still am. I still consider myself somewhat of an athlete, although I'm almost 50 years old. Right, my mind is still the mind of an athlete and a
Right.
competitor. So I went to Wayland High School, and then went to Worcester Academy Prep School because I was being recruited by certain colleges in the New England area, Division I, Division II schools, and I graduated early, so I was young for my age, and so I went to prep school. Loved my time there in Worcester Academy, but while I was there, I really encountered a certain level of racism and prejudice that I had not encountered growing up my entire life. And I went to predominantly white schools my entire life. Um, and I think it was a convergence of, just what I was going through, how I was growing, and just my mentality, and the fact that my older sister was at Spelman College, and she was just talking about the historically black college experience, and I never looked at historically black college. I was just being recruited by different schools, and I got to a place in my life where I just determined that I wanted to go to a school not based upon my athletic ability, but my mental and my academic strength. And so I literally just said, let me just look at the 3 or 4 top historically black colleges that had good basketball programs. And at the time, Morehouse was, I think, ranked number 1 or 2 in the Division II, and they were on the cover of the Sports Illustrated in 1990, 1991. And so I said, hey, looks like Morehouse it is. And my sister was at Spelman. So I applied and I got in barely by the skin of my teeth.
Ooh, yeah.
and then, I ended up going there and playing basketball and having a successful college athletic career. And, I'm glad now that I went to Morehouse. I love the experience, I love the people that I met, and some of the friendships and brotherhood that was created in that particular space. And to this day, I still have some great friends and some great memories of my days in the house.
Right. College is definitely that place where, like you said, you make those lifelong, for the most part, friendships, which is really cool. When you were in college, though, did you feel that you had that calling for ministry at that point, or did that come out?
No,
Okay. When did that come out?
no, not at all. I mean, I was a part of this program in Boston called Project Reach, that was run out of the Freedom House. And so I always knew that when I graduated from college, I thought that I would play professional basketball, not the NBA, but maybe,
Yeah.
go
Abroad.
overseas abroad. And I had the opportunity to do that, but I fell in love with my queen, with my wife, and she had a daughter, and I didn't think it was the right thing to do to crisscross them all around the world.
Yeah.
But I always knew that I'd come back to Boston at some point, and I would serve my dad, and serve my community, and be a part of the solution. You know, a lot of us, we complain about the problems, but we never really decide to be a part of the solution. So I always knew that I wanted to be a part of the solution, whatever that meant, in serving my church, serving my community, and serving the city that I love. But I never thought necessarily ministry. And what happened was, after graduating, and working corporate for a year, I started to have these dreams, about my dad, about just serving my dad and helping him. And I explained a dream that I had one time, and he said, "Man, you know, that's a dream from the Lord." And he hired me. My first job working for the ministry, I was my dad's personal assistant, and I took, I think, like a $14,000 pay cut, to work for the church, but it was the greatest decision that I made. And I honestly thought that, you know, my ministerial track would be, you know, behind the scenes, serving in administration and business. I was always gifted with business and real estate, and you know, I was always involved in economic development. And so, you know, the first 7 or 8 years of my ministry life, I ran the business and the day-to-day of Jubilee. You know, founded a for-profit real estate development corporation. We started a record label. My wife started to build bookstores, and I just ran the day-to-day operations of the church. And then really in my late 20s, early 30s, you know, the Lord literally spoke to me. If you don't know my story, you know, my wife and I, we had a challenge trying to have children. And when the Lord blessed us with a child, which was a miracle, you know, I was praying, and I told the Lord, you know, I'm giving my son back to you. You can use him for however you want to use him. And the Lord spoke to me, just as you hear my voice right now. He said, "Thank you for your son, but I'm still waiting for you." And in that moment, I knew that he was calling me to accept the call of pastoral ministry that had always been upon my life, but I was kind of running from it, doing good work, but not necessarily doing the perfect will that God had for me. And so I surrendered, and that was almost, I don't know, 17 years ago, and I haven't looked back ever since. But it's interesting, about all of those things that I learned, I realized they were a part of the preparation of me being able to lead Jubilee to the next season, and even the next level, that the Lord is requiring at this particular time. So,
You mentioned your queen. How did you two meet? I don't know.
well, the Bible says that he that finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. So my last year at Morehouse, I was just really praying for a wife. I knew that once I graduated from college, I wanted to be married. Okay. And so my sister, who was right under me, she was obviously still in Boston, and she kept on talking to me about this woman. You got to meet this woman. Her name is Mona. She's so amazing. She's so fabulous, and she's so this, and she's so that. And I'd be like, you know, now Mona was a member of our church, but you know, for 3 or 4 years, I was in college, so I didn't really. And she's a few years older than me, and so you know, when I was a teenager, she was, you know, older. She's 6 years older than I am, 5, 6 years older than I am. So now I'm in college, and I'm praying for a wife, and my sister April keeps on talking about this woman Mona. And so I came home one summer or one time, and I met her, and literally the first conversation I had with Mona, I thought to myself, like, I know most people don't believe in love at first sight, and I can't say it was love at first sight. Right. It was definitely love at first conversation, because And obviously she was a beautiful woman. But I remember going home saying to myself, man, this is the type of woman that I could marry. Um, and we started a friendship. And then, as God would have it, I don't believe guys and girls can be friends. So one time I was in prayer and the Lord asked me a question. How I knew she was the one is the Lord asked me a question. The Lord said, can you imagine marrying someone else and not being Mona's friend? And at that moment, I couldn't imagine my life without her. And I didn't necessarily believe that men and women can be platonic friends. One person ends up liking the other or vice versa, right? So, and I just couldn't see my life without her. And
Right.
so I said, well, the Lord said, well, she's the one. And it's an interesting story because she was feeling the same way, but she had some friends that were telling her, if you guys are just friends, if he's not going to take it to the next level, you got to let this Negro go. So she was calling me to tell me that we can no longer be friends. And I was calling her to confess my love for her. And it was like a serendipitous moment where, because this is back in the day, 26, 27 years ago, where, it wasn't no cell phones or FaceTime. It was like, if you were going to make a long distance phone call, it was going to cost some money. So I picked up the phone to call her, and she had already called me.
Wow.
And the rest is history. We in July the 6th, we celebrate 25 years of marriage.
That's amazing.
Best
Every time I get a chance, I ask.
Best decision I ever made in my entire life.
See, here we go. You knew. Switching gears a little bit, I mentioned earlier that you've been able to open another campus for the church. In what ways have you had to be innovative during this pandemic?
Yeah, I think that, the church should be leading the world in terms of creativity, because we serve a God that literally spoke the world into existence. We serve a God of creation. And many times the church becomes limited in its focus, and it becomes stuck in its traditions. And of course, I believe in traditions, and I believe in, there are certain things that people that they never want to change. But remember that change is inevitable. But transition is a choice. How you transition in the midst of change is a choice. And so, there were some things that I believe that needed to change in the fabric of the church. And I'm not saying that God sent this virus to change. I'm not saying that. I'm not one of those conspiracy theorists, but I do believe that now we could use this challenge to transition. And so, I think it was just God that years before this, the virus came and the pandemic, we had made some adjustments in terms of being a hybrid church. The reality of it is that in our church, people didn't come to church every Sunday. People came to church every other Sunday because our congregation is so large. If everyone came every Sunday, we wouldn't be able to house everyone, right? And so, and then, we realized, so, we made a great emphasis on live stream and YouTube and Instagram. And we started to make the transition probably somewhere like in 2017, 2018, updating our cameras and thinking about a hybrid world. So when the pandemic happened, we were ready. We were prepared to make the switch and to make the change. Our giving was already online. A good 40 to 50% of our giving already came through different platforms. So we were ahead of the curve, and I think it was just the blessings of the Lord, because every day I ask God for wisdom. James chapter 1 Verse 5 says, if anyone lacks wisdom, if he asks, that he'll give it to him freely without finding any fault. And wisdom comes from the Lord. Knowledge is something that you can acquire or you can attain, but wisdom comes from the Lord. And so Solomon, asked God for wisdom. And the reason why he asked God for wisdom is not just for himself, but because of the people that he was called to lead. And so every leader that is watching right now, or you're watching later, ask God for wisdom, and the Lord will give it to you. And so, when we opened our second campus in Brockton, it was because we had 2,000 to 3,000 people that lived in that area that were traveling to our campus in Mattapan. And the Lord, 12 years ago, blessed us with an opportunity to purchase, an old Catholic church. And then as we were thinking about expanding, the fact that we are a church without walls, I felt the pull of God to plant a church in Worcester and Lowell and New Bedford and Revere. And the Lord has given me so many different cities, but then the Lord had to send or put that area on someone's heart. And so my younger sister and her brother, my brother-in-law, Pastor Will and Pastor Debbie, they felt called to the Worcester area. And so before the pandemic, literally, we were about to sign a lease for a building there. And then the pandemic happened. But we were already prepared for an online campus, and we were already prepared. They had already moved there. They had already established their children's in that school system. Because I believe that if you're going to have an impact in an area, in a city, you need to put your feet on the ground, right? Joshua 1 says, every place where your feet tread belong to you. And so Pastor Will and Pastor Debbie, they were already walking the ground and walking the streets and praying. And Pastor Will and I, for a first like 3 to 4 months, every so often I would travel there, and we would just go and pray and look for land and look for buildings and look for places, because we were preparing for what God was going to do and what he's still going to do. But here's the thing now that we're in a digital age and we are in a technological age, it's not just every place where your feet tread, but it's every place where your face and your voice can carry, that the Lord promises that he will give you that place. And so Pastor Will and Pastor Debbie, they're doing an incredible job with our Worcester campus. And we are actively looking for a place, for a physical location. By the end of this year, 2021, Jubilee Worcester will have a physical location. But now church has to change, and the process and how we use church is going to have to be readjusted in the next seasons that we are walking in. And so as we prepare for that, we're excited for that change and that transition.
Well, that was a perfect transition, because I was going to ask you, how do you think that churches overall are going to have to maybe adjust the way that they've generally proceeded?
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Are you a sports fan?
Yeah, I used to cover sports actually here in Boston.
Okay. So yeah. Who's your favorite team?
Okay, so you're just flipping the table. I'm supposed to be interviewing you.
No, this is going to help my point. Who's your favorite?
This might be controversial, but I did grow up a Giants fan. But
okay,
I did cover the Patriots, so
no problem. So you're a Giants fan. Okay, so how many Giants football games have you been to live?
Actually, 0.
Okay. So let's think about this. Okay, you've never been to a Giants football game live, but you're still a fan, which means that you still feel like connected to that team.
Yeah.
And so we are about to be living in an age where, right now our church has literally almost tripled, because there are people that are members of Jubilee that have never been to a Jubilee service. because they live in Ghana, or they live in Nigeria, they live in San Diego, they live in Charlotte, or they live in Tegucigalpa, or they live in a different part of the world, right? And so we are stepping into a hybrid age where there are people that will be members of Jubilee, and they will come and be a part of the worship experience of any of our campuses. But then there are people that may, for a season, they may feel more comfortable watching online.
Right.
They may feel more comfortable continuing to be on morning prayer in the morning instead of coming to a building. And the church has to be prepared for the hybrid age of church. Also, the church, like never before, must become the hands and feet of Jesus Christ in terms of how they influence their community, which means that I see the church now becoming really like a hub for goods and services and helping the poor and the needy, like we were long time ago, before the commercialization of church became this business model. And so if you notice, our church, all of our churches, and nothing against churches that have pews, but none of our sanctuary have pews, because I want to be able to use that sanctuary for a meeting space for the community, or maybe a place where we can house goods and services so that we can bless our communities and our surrounding cities. And so the church has to be continually growing and being able to be flexible to be in a hybrid world that we're in. I heard my father say this years ago, that the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ will always be, he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. The message of who Jesus is and what he is establishing is the same, but the methodology must change, must grow. There must be a transition of the methodology of how we interact with our people. Also, we pastor, and we're a part of a multi-generational church, which means that we have boomers, and then we have Gen Xers, and then we have millennials, and we have Gen Yers, and we have the next. And so we have to be able to speak to the multifaceted generations within our church so that we can all walk in unity. And so that's challenging, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm praying for pastors and leaders that they are willing to take that charge. People have asked me all the time, when are you opening? When are you going back? And I've said, going back is not biblical. The Lord is always requiring us to go forward. He's always requiring us to grow and to extend and to stretch. And so Jubilee's not going to go back. We're not going to open up again. No, we're going to relaunch. There will be a relaunching of our ministry that will be even greater, that will be even more expansive, that will even have a greater impact in Boston, in New England, in Worcester, in Brockton, in Revere. We're going to relaunch, and we're going to be able to see true transformation in our city. And I'm excited just to be a part of it. There are so many other great churches and so many great organizations, and I'm excited just to be a part of one of those that is looking to grow and expand.
Do you have a timeline for the relaunch, or are you still playing it by ear for now?
Well, I believe that the church, people come to church, really, the church is really a hospital. Really, the name of our church is Jubilee Christian Church Hospital. You know what I'm saying? It's a place for people that are sick, the people that need direction, people that need healing, people that need peace, people that are looking for life and strength. And so, the church needs to be a safe place. And so I am so concerned about the safety of all of our congregants from the multifaceted generations of our church. And so obviously I'm prayerfully, first I'm listening to the voice of God. Then of course, I have a team of our medical staff and medical team. I'm following the CDC guidelines. I want to see, the numbers of people that are vaccinated, reach a certain level. But then, even with the vaccination, and I believe in getting vaccinated by all means, but I think the Bible says in Hosea chapter 4, verse 6, that my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. And I think, unfortunately, especially in the African American community, there are people that are confusing vaccinations with immunizations. And so, immunization is when you get a shot and it protects you from whether it's the mumps or the measles or polio. And I think there are too many people that believe that the vaccine is like an immunization and it's like a force field. But the vaccination is just what that is. It's giving you your body the ability to fight off just in case you do contract COVID. And so I think that we as a church, as a people, we need to be more knowledgeable of what is happening, but also being concerned about our brother and sister, be more concerned about the needs of our brother and sister. I may be able to fight off, an infection or disease, but I don't know if my brother or my sister or my neighbor or that elderly person will be able to fight off. And so I'm prayerfully looking at the timelines, and strategically, prayerfully asking the Lord, when is the right time? Now, this past Easter, a couple of days ago, we had our first live service. It was in our second campus, but it was outside, and we had a drive-in, and we had over 250, 300 cars with family members in those cars, and people were able to stand outside with their masks on, and it was amazing, and it's so exciting. So I see us in the summer months doing some outside services, and of course continuing to be online and to minister to our online community. And then, as a team, we have come up with phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4 for our opening plan or our relaunching plan. But we are in the midst of phase 1 of the relaunch of Jubilee.
Nice. And final question, and because I know you are a sports fan, very unapologetic about your Patriots, I was curious, what is your favorite Boston sports team, if it is the Patriots?
Listen, I love football.
Okay.
But I'm a ball player, man.
Okay.
I'm Celtics. If you cut my arm right now, I would bleed green. There would be green stuff coming out of my arm. No, and
I checked out.
I love the Celtics. I used to have season tickets, years ago with Antoine Walker, Paul Pierce, where the jungle used to be rocking, man. And obviously I love Tatum. I love Jaylen Brown. I love our new team, and excited to see them reach their potential. So let's go Celtics.
Locked in answer. I thought it was going to be the Patriots, so you definitely flipped the script on that one. Pastor Matthew Thompson, thank you so much for joining 10 Questions with NBC10 Boston.
It was an honor. God bless you.